Welcome back to the video series on drafting with AutoCAD. So far, we've learned how to set units, how to create simple text, dimensions, and multi-leader styles, and also how to save them into a template. In case you missed the lessons, you can check them out in the link above. In this lesson, inshallah, we shall look at annotative scaling. This scaling applies to any information-carrying object like the text and dimensions that we have covered. We can also apply them on blocks, but we won't cover them here. When applied to a text or dimension style, annotative scaling creates smart texts and dimensions which adapt to the plotting or printing scale. This means that we may not need a predetermined scale as before. For example, for a text size of 3 mm on the paper space, we create only one text style and make it annotative with a paper text height of 3 mm. This height will remain consistent regardless of the scale of the viewport or printing paper. This differs from the previous method where we had to specify the text height to adhere to a predetermined scale. For example, a scale of 1 to 100 required a text height of 300 mm. We saw that we had to create several text styles with different text heights, and this was tedious. Let's learn how to create and use annotative text and dimension styles. So I've gone ahead and opened up a new drawing using the template file we had created. Then I've made just a simple drawing over here, as you can see, but I've not added any text or dimensions. So the first step will be to obtain the scale or the scales that we'll be using in the annotation. Before we do that, you can just pause the video and make the same drawing as mine. So once you've created your drawing, we're going to create a new layout for the paper space. To do that, you go down here on this plus sign, click on it, created layout 3, select it. So here in this window, it's requiring us to select the size of the layout. In this case, we are using an A4 paper, 210 by 297, which can vary depending on the size of paper you wish to use. So I'm just going to press close. It's going to automatically create it. Now what we have here is called the viewport. It's been automatically created to just extract the drawing we made in the model space, fit it correctly onto the paper. Now the scale of this viewport is written down here. As you can see, this is not a standard scale. So we want to select or determine a standard scale which you can use. In this case, I'll try out a scale of 1 to 100, which is going to reduce the drawing a bit. Then I'm going to reduce the viewport size so that you can just be within the bounds of the drawing itself. Then I move it. Then I want to create another scale. Since we've created this one already, the scale of 1 to 100. So let's just lock it. Then I create another one. Go to the layout tab, select rectangular viewport. I create another one. Double click into it. As you can see, this scale is not standard, but I want a standard scale. I want something 1 to 200. As you can see, it's not around here. So to create your own, or perhaps to create that 1 to 200, you need to add a new scale. It's going to be 1 to 200, presenting 200 drawing units. One paper unit representing 200 drawing units. Select OK. Press OK. Then once you still have it selected, now you can select the scale 1 to 200. Now the size has reduced significantly, so you drop it down a bit, the viewport size, so you can just be within the margin of the drawing. Then I want it to be very close here, close to the other viewport, so that we can compare it. Once you're done with that, we go back to the model space. Now we want to create annotative styles for both the text and the dimensions. To do that, we go to the Annotate tab here. Begin with the text style. Go to the Manage Text Styles. Then in this case, since you want a size of 3 mm height, I'm going to use this text one as the starting point. So you just go ahead and select it, then select New. Going to call it Annotate, then press OK. And the only option or the only thing we're going to change is this part here. We want the size to be annotative, and that's it. Then you press Apply, then you close. Go and do the same for the dimensions. Manage dimension styles. We select dimension 1, which is the one for 3 millimeters. Then we click on new. So I'm going to start with dimension 1, write its name as annotate, and then select it as annotative, select continue. Then we're not going to change anything since, as you can see, the text height is 3 millimeters for text 1. So press OK. Then you can set it as current. Then we close. So now we'll go ahead and add the dimensions and text style, or we dimension the object. Before we do that, go down here on this scale, annotation scale for the current view. Just select it and we write the one that we began with on the viewport. So we had used a scale of 1 to 100 and a scale of 1 to 200. So I'll begin with 1 to 100. Selecting that, we go ahead and engage the dimension function. Then I begin to dimension the drawing. So I'm going to make sure that I am not repetitive in how I dimension the work. Like that. Like that. I can just the final one. Then I can go ahead and perhaps add the text. Go ahead and select a single line. Let's assume this is the floor plan of a building. So I write it as floor plan, just an example, like that. If I go to the layout that I created, find that the dimensions of text styles are visible on this viewport, which we had selected for 1 to 100, but now it's not visible on this other side, which is for 1 to 200. As you can see, you just lock it. So I go back to the model space, I change the scale down here, select 1 to 200. Automatically, this is how for the scale of 1 to 200, the text and dimensions are going to look like. Since it looks a bit untidy, I can go ahead and readjust them. So I just select, for example, the text. Then I just move it a bit, perhaps to that point. I select this one. I move it to this point. The one that is visible here, this one is now it's just showing us that there's another annotative scale, which is now of this size. So this is this is 1 to 200, this is 1 to 100. So once I'm done with that, if I go back, as you can see, it has been generated. And as you can see, there's a difference between the dimension style 2000 here and the dimension style 2000 here. This one is the arrows are pointing outwards, and this one the arrows are pointing inwards. This shows you that you can adjust the different annotations depending on the scale or at the viewport. For example, if I'm in this space, I can decide to perhaps change the position of the text here. So just double click into it. I select this. I move it. As you can see, the only thing that is moving is the text that is annotated on that scale. So in this case, that small text for a scale of 1 to 100 is the only one that's going to move. If I select escape, as you can see, it's the only one that has moved. This one is still intact. I can decide to perhaps move this one to the top. Press escape. As you can see, it's moved in a different direction. Now I double click outside. Now one thing about the sizes of these texts and the dimensions also, they're all consistent regardless of the scaling, which is now the most important thing. To confirm that, you can just go to the home tab and select measurement, just a quick measurement. We measure the height of this text. It's around 3 millimeters. You can do the same for this other side. We measure it, 3 millimeters. Now I might decide that I want to create another scale or another viewport. let's say for 1 to 50. So I go ahead and go to the layout, select rectangular viewport, I create a new one. Then immediately this one has created immediately, depending on it has only chosen the scale that is down here, but this is not a standard scale. So I'm going to select a scale of 1 to 50. It's quite big. Perhaps I can adjust it a bit. Let me see if it can fit. If it can fit, then we can use it. No, it won't fit. Let me use a custom scale, perhaps 1 to 150. So as we did the other time, you create a new scale, custom. You add, name it 1 to 150, which represents 150 drawing units. Then we press OK, double click into the viewport, select the scale 1 to 150. Immediately you're noticing that there is no dimension or text on this viewport. That's because we have not selected the scale in the model space. So let's just tidy it up a bit, yeah, like that. So I go back to the model space. Then now I select the scale that I've just created, 1 to 150. I can even go ahead and move this text a bit, move it down, move it perhaps at this point, move it to the top, that way. If I go back to the layout, as you can see, it has created the text and the dimensions are now visible. Now this is useful, as you notice that we have different scales. We might have a drawing perhaps of an object, but now we want to represent it in different scales. We might not have the time to create the text and dimensions, to coincide with the different scales. But now, in this case, we've just created one style for each, the dimension and the text, and it has automatically readjusted itself. We've had a brief look at annotative scaling. As you have seen, this is quite a useful tool to have in your belt. I will advise that you further read about it so you can be more proficient in its use. If you found this video useful, you can leave a like and also subscribe to the channel for more content. Thank you and see you in the next video.